Today is April the 28th. What is the most important commandment? Let's find out together as we study Mark chapter 12, verses 28 to 34. So on Tuesday, religious leaders are questioning Jesus, and they're trying to trip him up. But listen to what happens next. Verse 28, one of the teachers of religious law was standing there listening to the debate. He realized that Jesus had answered well, so he asked, of all the commandments, which is the most important? Now, this is a legitimate question from this man. This is not intended to trip Jesus up. Instead, this man asks a question of Jesus. The question that he asks is actually a fairly common question. It was a question that they debated. You see, in the Old Testament, there comes from time to time an experience in which two commands are pitted against each other. The Egyptian midwives in the book of Exodus, they know they shouldn't lie, and Pharaoh comes to them and says, how are the Hebrew women giving birth? And they lie. They say, well, they are so robust that by the time we get there, they've already given birth. That's a lie. But it's more important to protect God's people than it is to tell the truth to Pharaoh. Protecting God's people has more weight than telling the truth to Pharaoh. So the question is really, which is the commandment that has supreme weight? Which is the commandment we can never break? Jesus replied, the most important command is this: listen, O Israel, the Lord our God is the one and only Lord. You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. And the second is equally important: love your neighbor as yourself. No other commandment is greater than these. Jesus answers by giving one of the answers that was actually taught at that time. There were two Pharisees, Hillel and Shammai. They lived before Jesus, 50 to 70 years before Jesus. But the debates that they had held students' attention ever since they lived. One of the questions they addressed was, which is the greatest commandment? Shammai said, the greatest commandment is love the Lord your God. What Shammai was saying is the greatest commandment is to love God and express that love to him by obeying all 613 commandments that we find in the Torah. Hillel, however, said, there's not just one, there are two. Love the Lord your God and love your neighbor as yourself. In essence, Jesus says, I agree with Hillel. The change that Hillel introduces by saying love God and love your neighbor stems back to what Jews actually considered on the two stone tablets. One tablet held the first three commands, which are about loving God. The second tablet held the last 7 commands, which are about loving your neighbor. I think that division might be 4 and 6 instead of 3 and 7. Whatever it is, they also in a popular way said, love God, love your neighbor. Now, reading on through, the teacher of religious law replied, "Well said, teacher. You've spoken the truth by saying that there is only one God and no other. It's important to love him with all my heart and all my understanding, all my strength, and also to love my neighbor as myself. This is more important than to offer all of the burnt offerings and sacrifices required in the law." Realizing how much the man understood, Jesus said to him, "You're not far from the kingdom of God." After that, no one dared to ask him any more questions. Now their own were beginning to follow him. Jesus identifies with Hillel, so much so that around this time, not in the book of Mark, but in the book of John, Jesus goes one step farther. Shammai said, "Love God." Hillel said, "Well, that's good, but we have to love God and love our neighbor." John chapter 13, in verse 34, Jesus tells his disciples, "Now I'm giving you a new commandment. Love each other. Just as I have loved you, you should love each other. Your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples." Jesus goes one step further than Hillel. He says, you know what? Focus on your love for each other. If you truly love each other, you will be expressing your love for God through your love for each other. Jesus takes this one step farther and says simply, the greatest commandment is this: love. Please like, follow, and subscribe. If you have any questions for us, email us at questions@becomehope.com. Tomorrow, we'll answer the question, what is the Messiah?